Aloha! This is Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I talked to John Murakami. He is a comic book creator from Hawaii. Now, let's get started! Today is a very special day because today I am interviewing local comic book creator John Murakami. John, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me here.
Today is October 13th. Nothing else is happening in the world. Nobody went to space. So before we start, did you watch that thing about William Shatner going into space?
I didn't watch it, but I see a lot of the interviews and everything and articles.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to say sorry. I'm already going off track. Sorry, but because I know he was here 2 or 3 years ago. Did you get a chance to meet him?
I did not, unfortunately. It's like, I think the time that we had to meet him, we actually had dinner with Rick Holberg, actually.
Oh,
So, yeah.
yes.
So, yeah. So we were doing something else. So, but Gwen got to see him. So, yeah.
So also to our listeners, as John mentioned, Rick Holberg, of course, he's also now correct me if I'm wrong, John. I know he's also like one of those longtime artists back in the
Yes.
80s, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it even goes back to the 70s. Like, if anyone who had like the original Star Wars Treasury, based on the movie,
Hmm.
Rick, I believe, was the inker on that one.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I
yeah.
and I think he's because I know I have the autographed copy of the hardcover from IDW. He did. I
Hmm.
think he did like some of the artwork in the Star Wars newspaper strips that came out back in the late 70s, early 80s. Yeah.
Not sure if that was him, but yeah. But he also, he was also fundamental for a lot of the children TV shows that we watched. So like Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, he was a pretty instrumental designer on that one. Did a lot of storyboards and so forth, and
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, very prolific man. It's like I really, really admire his art.
Yeah. Um, we are going to touch a little bit more about you and creators that have come down to Hawaii a little bit later on. So,
Okay.
all right. So, before literally start getting rolling into the interview, I'm going to give a little bit history of about John. And John, like I said, correct me if I'm wrong if I got any of my information if I got any of my information wrong or anything like
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, John is a freelance cartoonist. He born and raised on Oahu, a graduate of the University of Hawaii. His works include comic strips, Calabash in the Star Advertiser. Now that's a paper on Oahu, and Generation Gap. It's the Hawaii Herald. Now that is a Japanese American newspaper that's published on Oahu.
Hmm.
Now also too, he's John has also self-published comics as well. Gordon Ryder, Edamame Ninjas,
Hmm.
and the Our Rangers. He's
Yeah.
also illustrated Hawaiian picture and board books for children such as Gecko Surf, and has a line of greeting cards called Local Kind. Is that correct?
It's local kind greeting cards, but yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. All right. Now, did I miss anything?
Um, well, hopefully, if things settle down, we had to stop it because of the pandemic. I have a comic strip in a publication called Wasabi, which is a free publication that they gave out, to everyone, and it's kind of like kind of the same thing where it's like Japanese American,
Mm-hmm.
newspaper kind of thing. It was more of a tie-in with Japan and Hawaii, so they asked me to do a comic strip, and so the comic strip I did was I did this character in like a bee outfit, and it was "What's Up Wasabi" because the name of the publication Wasabi.
Mm-hmm.
For those who don't know, wasabi is that that little green stuff when you eat sushi and all that, that hot mustard, that's on the side of it.
Oh, thanks, John.
So
Now we
yeah,
kind of spoiled it for everyone what that green stuff is on the.
yeah, that's right. No, it's not avocado. Don't just eat it all at once. You'll see your own nostrils. Um, but it was basically kind of a small informative thing talking about like culture about Japan. For
Hmm.
example, like one was talking about business cards, like how like when you present business cards, you use both hands and you have to examine it, and don't just put it away in your pocket. You have to actually study the card for a little while. It's just one of those like Japan etiquette.
Hmm.
Yeah, so things like that. So it was very informative. So it was fun.
Oh,
Um, yeah, and also I do a lot of freelance artwork. So I've done work for like Highway Inn, Battery Bills,
mm-hmm,
L&L Barbecue Restaurant,
mm-hmm.
and many different companies. And recently, I worked with a company in Japan
Oh,
for
okay.
designs for record sleeves for
Oh,
their records, which is odd because I didn't think anyone listened to records anymore. But
yeah.
yeah, they wanted record sleeves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One other thing that I do on the side, and this is just I do for fun, is this thing called Pungeons and Dragons. So I do like these real terrible puns of monsters from Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been kind of like I've been kind of doing it on a regular basis. So yeah, just fun stuff.
Now, for our listeners, like John mentioned, he's done some work for Highway in. John, correct me if I'm wrong. Now, I know Highway in. If I remember correctly, I think that's a local restaurant that serves Hawaiian food, and I think there's, if I remember correctly, I think there's two locations. I
There's
think.
two locations right now. Yeah, one in Waipahu and one in downtown.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then
really
also,
good. I love their food.
oh yes, it's very. So if you guys are visiting Hawaii, that's one place to check out. It
Yeah,
really is. Yeah, and I think it's a lot cheaper than going to an actual luau too. You know.
yeah,
um also John has also mentioned too LNL drive-in as well too. That's one of yeah, and John, like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, that's one of our basically our one of our own local plate lunch chain restaurants that's
yeah,
all on the
yeah.
islands. Yes, oh my god.
But they are expanding all over. So I think
Yes.
yeah, the mainland should I know they have a few.
Hmm.
So yeah.
You know what? Kamakapili, the weatherman on KHON, if I remember correctly, a couple weeks ago, he mentioned that I think when he said when he was living in New York.
Hmm.
God, I can't remember what part of New York. Um, he was walking in some area. He turns the corner and he goes, "There's oh my God, there's an L&L drive-in." You know.
Yeah, no, they did a good job. I mean, they've been expanding all over. So
Okay, so now I know. Favorite plate lunch from L&L Drive-In.
I like their chicken katsu.
Ah, yeah. Oh my God, yes. Yeah, yeah. Mine's is the chicken katsu curry plate lunch. Oh my
Oh yeah, that's good too. Yeah.
gosh. Okay, all right. Sorry. Okay, now let's get back to the interview. If not, man, this is going to be like we'll just be talking about all our
Yeah,
favorite
pretty
flavors.
much. We'll
Yeah.
just be talking story for like an hour.
Yeah, and also too for our listeners around the world, plate when we talk about plate lunches, it's usually a main entree with 2 scoops of white rice and macaroni salad.
Yeah.
Um, I have to say macaroni salad because I don't want you guys to come here and they say, okay, did you want salad on, do you want
Yeah.
salad on that? You know, don't ask for dressings.
Yeah.
It's macaroni
And
salad.
and chicken katsu is kind of like a breaded chicken cutlet that's cut up in pieces. So
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to ask, where can follow our listeners? Where can our listeners follow you on social media?
I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all under John J. Murakami.
Hmm.
One big word, JONJMURAKAMI.
Hmm. And then you have a website, correct?
Well, it's a store. It's an online store.
Okay.
So it's johnjmurakami.bigcartel.com.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Okay. So John, what part of Oahu, are you were you from?
Um,
Hmm.
Originally I'm from Pearl City, but now I'm in Mililani.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then, do you remember what was your first comic or comics have you read?
Wow. I think it was a toss up between Richie Rich and Archie's.
Hmm.
My parents worked at a local bus company, and they also, service school buses. So
Hmm.
kids would always leave their comics behind on the bus, and eventually, my parents would come home weekly with like stacks of comics just that kids just forgot on the bus, and so me and my sisters could just enjoy reading them for free.
Hmm. That's yeah. Wow. You didn't come across.
There were like other comics, like like Spider-Man and the Batman and things like that. But it's like, I guess because I felt like, because it was so episodic, and I never had the next issue, I
Yeah.
never really cared for those. So
Hmm.
that's why, like, for me, like Richie Rich and Archie's were kind of self-contained.
Yeah.
And I've always been, drawn to like humor
Hmm.
and more funnier stuff. Because again, too, in the '70s, like, I watched a lot of Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah.
So Looney Tunes, all the funny stuff, and that's what I kind of gravitated to. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you off the cuff. You didn't come across a Hulk 181, huh?
No, not well. I wouldn't even remember back then, but probably not. And they were in pretty bad condition anyway, so they were
Okay.
red to death.
All right. And then now, Drew, the co-host of Comics for Fun and Profit, he submitted
Mhm.
this question. What was your first LCS?
That's a local comic book shop.
Yeah.
Is that what that is? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I had to. I don't know.
Oh,
All these phrases are all
no,
different.
yeah.
But in Pearl City, down the peninsula,
Mhm.
there was a small comic book shop called Parker's.
I remembered. Okay.
Yeah, and so we used to always visit there, and it's funny because as kids we lived on the top of Pearl City, so it was pretty much like we took our bikes and we went straight down. It was all
Mhm.
downhill all the way. Of
Yeah.
course, going back up was a pain because it's all uphill. So
Yeah.
you know, but later I discovered like jellies.
Hmm.
And they're already at 404 Pecoy, and
Yes.
then next to it was Froggies,
Oh my God. Yeah.
and then later on, I guess jellies moved to the Ayer region, behind. Well, actually, no, they were actually in Pearl Kai.
Yes.
Yeah, by Tower Records. Well, that's another name for the past.
Yeah.
And then they moved to behind Cutter Ford, and so yeah, so jellies, and then, but I discovered other places too, like Geckos and
Mhm.
Pogo Stick that was in Kailua by
Oh.
Steve.
Oh
Um,
God. Yeah.
yeah, there was a Legionnaire in IA, Legionnaire 2, and eventually Dragon's Lair and
Hmm.
Other Realms when it was still in Ward.
Yeah.
So we had quite a bit of comic book shops, so we were very fortunate.
Yeah, that's right. Because I forgot about Parker's.
Yeah,
Yeah. God. Because I
but
remember.
that was my first comic book shop. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So I'm gonna ask. So what led you to decide to work in comics?
I decided to do it because I have absolutely no other skills whatsoever. But yeah, no, but for me, realistically, like when I was growing up in the '70s, back then there was no internet, there was no cable, there was no DVD players or
Oh God. Yeah.
or VHS or anything really. It's just what we had on TV,
Hmm.
and like, and again, the only time we could watch cartoons was pretty much Saturday morning, or
Hmm.
the brief one they had before school and after school, and that
Yeah.
was it. And occasionally you get the occasional Charlie Brown Christmas special, or like, ooh, let's stay home for that.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
but again, too, it's like there was no way to record it, so you had to watch it when it came out. And to me, animation was always such a fascinating thing. Like, and again, I loved all the Saturday morning cartoons, and um, we also, I guess, like, were lucky because here in Hawaii we had a lot of access to a lot of the Japan shows.
Yes.
So we actually had an early connection um to like anime, some anime,
Hmm.
and some live action tokusatsu shows, so like the live action superhero shows. So that's the kind of stuff that fascinated me.
Hmm.
But also back then too, like, I mentioned how my parents would bring back comics,
Hmm.
but the other thing that I was always been fascinated with was the Sunday funnies, and that was something for free. You could read the Sunday comics and read Peanuts and Garfield and Blondie and
Hmm.
Family Circus and all these great comics for free. And I will admit, I kind of gravitated more toward comic strips than comic books,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
But and that was just something I just decided I just wanted to do.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's pretty much it.
And then now because I know you graduated from UH. So how did you, and correct me if and you can answer this, correct, well, I'm trying to get big. How did you break into comics? or how did you decide to,
Um,
start
yeah.
doing? Yeah.
Well, and it's funny too because like again, back when I graduated from UH, at this time it's like the internet was something new. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's like I only knew it for email. Like we could just send messages between others. Like I think like in the beginning, there weren't like really a lot of streaming services. I mean, this is the days of like CompuServe, Hotbot, and all these like really old, antique, things. AOL was big back then. And so there really wasn't too many search engines back then as well. I mean, Ask Jeeves or something.
Yeah. Oh
Uh,
my God.
yeah, I
Yes.
remember that. So yeah, so I didn't know how to go about even getting into the industry. I mean, everything that I learned, you looked at your local library and you just hope that all that stuff is up to date.
Hmm.
But I was mentored under a gentleman, Dave Thorne. Now, Dave Thorne was a local cartoonist here in Hawaii, and he taught a lot of like classes and he taught cartooning and so forth.
Hmm.
But he had ties with a lot of cartoonists and a lot of people.
Hmm.
He was kind of considered like the Jedi Master to all cartoonists in Hawaii because most people about my age or a little bit older had a tie with him one way or another.
Hmm.
Anyway, there was another cartoonist by the name Phil Ye,
Hmm.
and Phil is based in California.
Hmm.
He's known for this comic called Patrick Rabbit and also the Winged Tiger. Okay.
Oh.
Um, so he was visiting Hawaii, and Dave introduced me to him, and I hung out with him. And he kind of became a second mentor to me because he actually invited me to do like a 4-page story for his comic, which was called Penguin and Pencilguin. Now, this comic was Phil and his co-creator Leigh Rubin
Hmm.
put this together. Leigh Rubin actually later on did a comic strip called Rubes, which I think is featured in some of the newspapers.
Yeah.
But I did a 4-page story called The Wondrous World of Warwick, is what it was called.
Hmm.
And it was about a bunch of kids about 9 to 10 years old in kind of a Dungeons and Dragons type scenario.
Hmm.
And Warwick was a squire who dreamed of being a warrior. So he had like a saucepan on his head for a helmet and all
Hmm.
that. And then, the other kids, like one was a magic user, one was an elf, and, one was a wizard in training.
Hmm.
And so the whole comic in general kind of dealt with awareness for issues like, promoting literacy or, stop watching TV so much and everything. So the topic that they gave me was littering. So I did a very short comic about littering. And so this was kind of like my break into the comic scene.
Hmm.
And, so that was my very first comic that I worked on. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I'm gonna say before I continue on, because this is the second time you mentioned about Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Played have you played Dungeons and Dragons while growing up?
We did. We did. We were really bad. We cheated a lot and we had bad DMs and everything. But I always like the reference books.
Yeah.
So and still to this day, I still kind of like confer to it. I look it up for like reference and so forth. But I've always been fascinated with the monsters, and a lot of it are historical as well.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, I think I learned like how to design characters and how to tell a story and how to create characters and everything
Mm-hmm.
because of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
I don't play anymore because the rules are so different now than what I used to play. So yeah.
And then now I'm gonna that 4-page story, you know, did it lead to any other jobs, or what was um did did you come back to Hawaii? What happened after that, basically?
No. I mean, even his readership was kind of a small base, but it was kind of like my kind of like a test. You know what I mean? It was kind of like my initiation to can I do it? And
Yeah.
so I did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then so later on, I think I've been doing like little odd projects here and there. Um, a lot of people were doing anthologies at the time, so I would submit like small little like art pieces here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of them were really local. Nothing like was really like big or anything.
Mm-hmm.
We did one called Pagers back in I want to say 2005. I want to say, and it
Mm-hmm.
was a bunch of local artists, so we put it together. It was this anthology of all different artists.
Mm-hmm.
He actually our editor Eric actually he actually did the whole thing where he got it printed on the mainland, and
Yeah.
I forgot that printer, and he actually had to distribute it through Diamond.
Wow.
But the problem was like, because this was kind of like a second thing to everybody, not everybody could keep up with the deadline, so we
Oh.
kind of, yeah, we fell behind pretty quickly. We only did about like 6 issues, and then we folded up.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to ask you, like, how long have you been a freelance, how long have you been doing being a freelance cartoonist? For how long?
Um, I would say, like professionally, I'd probably about like maybe about the around college, so the 80s or 90s when I started kind of getting paid for some of my work.
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah. So a lot of it was because, when I was at the University of Hawaii, I did a comic strip called the University of Diversity. And
Hmm.
it was just a mindless comic strip. It was about 6 kids and, them taking classes and,
Hmm.
just trying to graduate and so forth.
Hmm.
And and what happened was I didn't realize because of the distribution of it, a lot of people actually like read it. And so even to this day, I still get jobs because of it, because they remember the comic strip.
Yeah.
So I thought about doing a revision of it, like to do it now. And once in a while, I'll redraw a comic strip, but it's just so hard because I've been out of the college scene for so long,
Uh-huh.
But people still remember all the characters, and people will remind me of certain comic strips, and
Hmm.
so it's kind of cool. So I made some kind of an impact, which I was really happy about.
I'm gonna ask, do you have it collected like anywhere? Do you have it like in a like a collected trade or anything? Or
Yeah, part half of it I would say is Deb Oki, who's another artist. I consider her kind of like my big sister. She also did a comic strip in the Kaleo Hawaii, which was the newspaper from the University of Hawaii.
Mhm.
When I first got into college, she kind of hunted me down, and she's the one who actually kind of like uh, forced me in a way to submit a comic strip because she knew what I could do.
Oh, okay.
So it's because of her that actually she, that really kind of like helped me along. And Deb has always been, like I said, my big sister and like a real good source of information and wisdom for me. And
Hmm.
she's always been supportive of me, and I always really appreciate all of her help.
And then I'm just gonna ask, like, I know all of your work is self-published. Is there anyone else you want to give a shout out to? You
Oh,
know,
there's so many people. Gosh, it's hard
we
to say them
haven't
all
gone
because
through the word.
we're gonna I'm gonna forget somebody and they're gonna get mad. But definitely my parents. I mean, I really have to give a shout out to my parents for all their support through the years. I
Mhm.
mean, because in the 70s and maybe even now, I'm sure every parent is crushed when they hear, "Hey, I think I want to be a professional artist." You
Mhm.
know? But because back then the opportunities weren't that great. It's
Yes.
like
Yeah.
if you say you're going to be an artist, that usually means you're posting stuff on the Honolulu Zoo wall and hoping that somebody will buy your paintings or something. But nowadays with the internet and the amount of jobs available,
Yeah.
including self-publishing, I think now it's a more sustainable and a more viable career now.
Oh,
But
yeah.
so I think parents are a little bit okay with it now.
Mhm.
But no, but they've always been very supportive of everything I do. So yeah, so shout out to them. So thanks, mom and dad.
Now, I'm going to start with your self-published comic series. Your first one I'm going to ask you about, Gordon Ryder.
Yeah.
What is the premise of that series, and how did you come up with that series?
The premise of the series actually, it's kind of like it's basically a love letter to the shows that I used to watch on TV growing up. So I used to watch a lot of tokusatsu shows, which
Mhm.
is that means live action superheroes, kind of like Power Rangers. So
Mhm.
we had shows like Kikaida, Kamen Rider V3, Ultra 7, Robocon, and there's a whole lot more.
Mhm.
And I also enjoyed cartoons with like, I guess like misfit superheroes. So like the Tick, or
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
the Mighty Heroes,
Oh my God, yes.
Freakazoid, Hong Kong Fooey, Inspector Gadget,
Mhm.
Dynamite Dog Warner. So essentially the lead characters were pretty inept.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And it's kind of like the sidekick is the person who kind of kept them on track and saved the day. That's the
Yes.
kind of stuff I kind of wanted to do. So I kind of combined that into a comic. And I also love comedy, so I also threw a lot of humorous stuff in there as well. So I
Mm-hmm.
tried to stick in as much as I could. And yeah, that's essentially it. I mean, Gordon Ryder is basically is like a superhero. He's not the best at what he does. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, but he eventually gets there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, how did you come up with Gordon Ryder? I mean, I kind of have an idea, but if
Yeah.
you maybe explain it to the listeners.
Oh, okay. Gordon Ryder is a parody of Kamen Rider, which
Mm-hmm.
is Mask Rider, which is again, an established Japanese superhero. The origin kind of started as an inside joke. So we had a guy named Gordon who actually came to my friend's shop, and he'd hang around all day and everything. And he was still kind of young. He was fresh out of high school, and he was pretty goofy. Some of the stuff he said, we had to kind of question, like, what are you talking about, Gordon?
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, we talk about the Tokusatsu series,
Yes.
Kamen Rider.
Mm-hmm.
And Kamen Rider was actually on hiatus because the original creator, Ishinomori, he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So the last series that he did was a series called Kamen Rider Black RX. And
Oh,
I think they tried to bring that over to America, and they just called it Mask Rider.
yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't translate too well.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so we heard that there was a new series coming out by somebody else, and so we were really excited to see it.
Mm-hmm.
But when we saw it, we were like disappointed. I think it was like Kamen Rider Hibiki.
Oh, okay.
So watching this thing, it seemed kind of like low budget, and like the opening scene is these kids on a bicycle, and they're doing this musical singing number, and they're like, what is this?
Yes.
Um, he didn't have a motorcycle. He had to borrow somebody's car, and they're like, wait, he's Kamen Rider. Why doesn't he have a bike? Because all of them had a bike. They were like really goofy monsters. Like one was like this huge house in the middle of the forest. And this all I think the premise of Kamen Rider Hibiki was it was about the supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
The one was like this huge like shack in the middle of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And the main characters don't even know it's like these big spider legs come out and it's following them.
Mm-hmm.
And like, how do you not notice this house following you? I mean, that's how silly it was.
Mm-hmm.
So we were so disappointed that one of my other friends joked around how we should just buy a good video camera.
Mm-hmm.
And get some people to beat up Gordon on local public television, and we probably get more viewers. So that kind of sparked a sketch.
Uh-huh.
And so there was a whiteboard that was at my friend's shop, and I would draw on it like just little adventures of Gordon Ryder.
Yeah.
And people would come in to read the strip. So I guess it's kind of an early web comic, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they started contributing ideas. And finally, in 2005, I took all the drawings that I did and compiled it into a comic. And that was kind of the birth of Gordon Ryder, the comic.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Oh, we also found there's actually a real doctor's name. I think his name is Gordon Ryder. So we kind of apologize because he said that's actually a real name. We didn't realize that. So, yeah.
I'm going to ask you. No, I'm just asking. So, so Gordon Ryder, like, is it kind of sort of like an ongoing series? Like, how many, if you don't mind me asking, like, how many issue comes out per year? Or
it's I just okay. So what happened was I tried to actually come out with one, like, for every convention that comes out, because that's usually when people get excited and then they'll pick it up and so forth. So we're on issue 15 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it is ongoing, but several of them are just like arcs.
Mm-hmm.
So issue 1 and 2 is by itself, issue 3 and 4 is by itself, 5 and 6, 7, 8. But then come from issue 9, this one is actually kind of an ongoing thing because this is when I actually started the webcomic.
Oh.
And it's sad because I stopped doing the webcomic, but people still want to know what happens. And I know how it's going to end. I just have to kind of like continue it. Well, people are waiting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. And then now your next series or next comic book I want to talk about is, correct me if I'm in the pronunciation, the Ara Rangers.
Yeah, the Ara Rangers. Yeah.
Yes. Now, what is the premise of this series?
Okay, so this one is like based after Sentai, which is like a team of like superheroes. So again, this is very much like Power Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
So the very first team superheroes that they had was called the Gorenjas, Himitsu Sentai Gorenjas.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically a team of five individuals of different, genders and race, and
Mm-hmm.
they combine forces to save the day. So it was pretty much similar to Gordon Rider, but they had a giant robot with them. Kind of like the current Power Rangers now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah,
And
basically. Mm-hmm.
we came up with this because the guy Gordon, he stopped coming to the shop, so we tried to figure out another topic. So um, again, I enjoyed Gorenjas, which was also designed by Ishinomori, who created Kikaida and Kamen Rider. Um, but usually they have a theme for the faceplates.
Yeah.
So like they had a theme like dinosaurs or samurai or cards, deck of cards
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. And seeing how there's five of them, I based it on the five shapes of arare. That's why I did the ararenjas.
Mm-hmm.
Arare is a pun. So arare is like that's also called kakimochi or mochi crunch.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's kind of like bite-sized crackers from Japan in like shoyu or soy sauce. Yeah, sorry, I
Mm-hmm.
gotta remember it, mainland audience. So yeah, and they're like kind of like the five characteristic shapes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so yeah, it was just fun.
Now, before I continue on, like we talked about, because John, you and me, we've both grown up, in the 70s.
Yeah.
The Kamen Riders,
Mhm.
Kikaida, the Five Rangers.
Yeah.
Um, Couple of things. I'm going off the cuff here. Do you have any of the action figures?
I do not, unfortunately, and it's really funny how like back then it seemed like everybody had the toys,
Yes.
and for some reason like it's all gone. I don't know if they was thrown out by your parents or
Mm-hmm.
or what, like, but I remember you can walk around. It's like I used to have that. I
Yeah.
had that. I think I still have the 45 records of the theme songs, but
Oh,
that might be about it.
yeah.
Like I don't have any of the physical product.
Now, listeners, we talked about Kikaida. So Kikaida was very big back in the 70s.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Now I'm going to ask you, John. Did you go to, and it was, I believe, at Pearl Ridge. I never went to it, but did you go down to try to see the actor Bon Daisuke, who played Jiro, um, Jiro in Kikaida? Did your parents ever try to take you to go see him when he?
Yeah, I think we did, and I think it was at the Blaisdell, I believe.
Oh, that's right, because they
Yeah,
always have, yeah.
yeah. So I believe it was at the Blaisdell, but then it's one of those like you're lost in the crowd, so you don't really see them. You know what I mean? Like, from a distance. But I had that little coloring book, I guess, that they were giving out to the kids. A really poorly drawn coloring book. So,
All right.
but so it was nice that like recently, like, Bon Daisuke, who's the actor who was on Kikaida, he comes down frequently to Hawaii, so I got to meet him a few times. That was
Yeah.
really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that was real. Yeah, because I've met him a couple times too. That's really
Hmm. Hmm.
okay. So the next one I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to ask you about. So next one is edamame ninjas.
Yeah.
Edamame, now correct me if I'm wrong. Translated is basically soybeans,
Yeah.
right? Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, what's the premise for that series?
So edamame ninjas is like kind of like little gags around these little bean ninjas. So this was based after a quick sketch when I was kind of doodling around. So I drew like these little bean shapes and then kind of gave them like eyes and colored it, like black, for like the ninja outfit kind of thing. Give them little stubby arms and legs.
Mhm.
And then somebody online suggested, hey, they look like edamame. Why don't you call them edamame ninjas? So we kind of went from there. And the reason why we did this one was, there's been so many cons. It's been hard for me to kind of like keep up with coming up with new comics and product every time there was an event.
Mhm.
So this was a quick down and dirty comic that I made as an ash can.
Oh, okay.
So basically, Xerox onto color paper, staple them ourselves, and then distribute them. Um, the hard part about these ones were they were like each page was like an individual gag, but the characters don't talk.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also another challenge to tell stories without the dialogue. So it was, Sergio Aragones, who does Gru and Mad Magazine, he's the king of that.
Mm-hmm.
He does it flawlessly. I mean, I always admire Sergio's work. The additional challenge was like these characters have no mouths.
Yeah.
So you can see their eyes, but they have no mouth. And they say like eyes and mouths are the most expressive things on the characters.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like my version of like the Minions mixed with Spy versus Spy. You remember that from Mad
Yeah.
Magazine?
Oh yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically them trying to beat up each other and do it in a way that, like, again, there's no dialogue, just silly little comics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm going to ask before I continue on. So, for your
Oh,
comment,
wait. I'm sorry. Let me add one more thing to that. Actually.
yeah.
So basically, so it's funny because people really liked it.
Okay.
But when the video games came out of, I believe it's called Fall Guys and Among Us.
Okay.
Are you familiar with those games?
No.
Okay, so Fall Guys and Among Us came out, and they were very similar. I mean, they were very big video games.
Mm-hmm.
The similarity to them and the Edamame Ninjas was so great that it kind of discouraged me to do any more with Edamame Ninjas because it looks like I'm ripping them off.
Oh.
I mean, because they're simple characters. They're just round little characters with like arms and legs and two little beady eyes. I mean, anybody can come up with that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So I just want to throw that out there.
Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Now, for your comic books and maybe and even your comic strips, where do you come up with your ideas for your story?
Oh, okay. For the comic strips, I would have to say it's like a lot of it is like looking at what's going on in the world today.
Okay.
So of course, when the pandemic hit, I did a lot of jokes about wearing masks and how we act and everything. I look at what's going on in the news, like current fads. Like right now, that Squid Game is a big thing, so I'm doing some jokes on that.
Mm-hmm.
As for the comic books, for Gordon Ryder, like I think I mentioned, it was based on the input of the people.
Mm-hmm.
So for my other stories, I usually have like a beginning and an end.
Mm-hmm.
And usually I'm writing the stories, I'm laying out the book. So I'm thinking about sequences and mostly gags as I go. So I don't really write out a full script or anything. I probably should. Then my comics would probably make more sense. But for the most part, I'm winging it as I go.
Mm-hmm.
The fun thing about Gordon Ryder, and I always do this, Gordon Ryder has a Facebook page. And often I'll ask people, it's like, can you help me design some monsters?
Oh.
So, because you remember how like Kikaida and Kamen Rider, it was always a color and and an animal, or like on Kamen Rider, it was an object and an animal.
Yes.
So I would tell people, it's like, hey, I need a color, an object, and an animal, and people would just send all kinds of crazy ideas, like okay, if I ask you right now, just something off the blue, go ahead, off the bat, go ahead.
I don't know. Blue mask. Wombat.
Yeah, see, so I would just go from that, and then I would design the bad guy off of that. That would be my next villain, and it's just fun because people felt like they were included in the story. And I would credit them at the end as well.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it was kind of fun. And then same thing with Gordon's abilities. Gordon abilities were based after food. So I would just say like, okay, but the joke about it was he had to do it alphabetically.
Oh.
So he would have an attack, like maybe B would be like burrito blast.
Yeah.
And then so I would bring it up to the viewers and say, okay, Gordon Ryder's ability to begin with C. So go ahead. And then I would choose, one from the people who would submit, ideas. And same thing, I would acknowledge them, just for that.
I didn't know. That's pretty cool that you have like a following.
Yeah, so it's pretty fun. It's just kind of to thank all the readers and followers,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm going off the cuff here. So have you been doing this ever since when did you join Facebook, and did you do it when you started the Facebook page?
when I set up the Gordon Ryder Facebook page, I kind of had that in mind, and I kind of streamlined it. And unfortunately, I wish I didn't, because actually I lost a lot of the original sketches and photos and notes and everything. But yeah, but I've been asking for participation kind of like from the beginning.
Oh. So I'm off the cuff. I'm sorry, I'm kind of putting you on the spot because I
No,
don't know about this, but what was the best response for like one of those those super villains? What was the best one that you remember?
oh gosh, there's so many. It's hard to say. I think I had one which was like it was like orange orangutan. Like, well, yeah, it's a color and an object. All right, I'll give you that. No, they're really good because they come up with a lot of creatures that even I don't even think about, or even colors that I don't think about. Like someone said Harlequin, and
Yeah,
I said Harlequin's a color, and so
yeah.
I looked it up, and Harlequin is actually a green. It's kind of
Oh,
like a chartreuse. Yeah, I assumed it was red and black, like
yeah.
Harlequin, like we know. Harlequin is actually like a if you look it up, yeah, it's like a lightish chartreuse green.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
So I learned something from these. Well, people are just trying to test me. That's really what it is.
Okay, so I'm gonna continue on. I'm gonna start going to your through your comic strips now.
Okay.
You like your generation gap comic. Oh wait, actually, let me take a step back. The
Okay.
Calabash comic strip in the Star Advertiser, and again,
Yeah.
that's our local newspaper on Oahu.
Mhm.
Again, what's the for our listeners, what's the premise of the comic strip?
Calabash is essentially it's a series of local comic strips about Hawaii. It's essentially it's just me and with local humor.
Mm-hmm.
So people on the mainland might not get it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. Um, so Calabash, the name is Calabash is actually like a bowl or a container,
Mm-hmm.
like a wooden container, from a hollowed gourd. And I guess like when it comes to people, it means like a close friend or relative,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
because it's kind of like someone's so familiar to you that you would eat out of the same bowl kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So we use the term like calabash cousin or calabash friend and stuff like that, and that's very popular here in Hawaii.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So again, I bring up Dave Thorne, my mentor. He was the one who came up with the name of the strip because he felt like it was gonna, my strip was more of a, talking about local families and customs and
Mm-hmm.
gags and things like that. Um, so when we started this, it was uh, back then it was still the Star Bulletin. This
Oh
was before the
God.
merger.
Yeah.
So they had a feature called Drawn and Quartered by Burl Burlingame, and he asked for submissions. So I was one who kind of submitted a lot of the things,
Mm-hmm.
and I submitted kind of on a regular basis. So after a while, they asked me and they asked Dave Thorne. It's like, hey, you guys want to do a comic strip? And we're like, oh, okay, sure. So and that's how it all began. So I was very fortunate that they picked me up.
Wow. And now you gotta forgive me because and I'll be honest with you, and listeners, I'll be honest, I haven't touched the newspaper in years.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So, but now no, but it's of course it's also online too.
yeah.
But the other thing when I asked, like, how long have you been doing that the comic strip?
Um, like when I first submitted work to the newspaper, I would say it was back in 2001.
Oh, okay.
But I think we started the regular comic strip, I would say starting about like 2007.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Yeah. So there was a small break in which we got let go for a little while, and then they had the merger between the Advertiser and the Star, uh, between the Star Bulletin and Honolulu Advertiser, and became one paper. And then we started up again. So ever since then, I've been working on it. Yeah.
Okay. And then and just for and I'm going to say even for me and our listeners, like is it a weekly, is it a daily comic strip or is it a weekly?
No, no.
Okay.
Comes out every other Sunday.
Oh,
So
okay.
so I take turns. So originally I was taking turns with Dave,
Mm-hmm.
Dave Thorne, and Deb was doing a comic strip in the Honolulu Advertiser, And then the three of us were kind of rotating after a while once the merger happens.
Mhm.
Deb decided to I think she was pursuing her other things, so she didn't have time to work on the strip. So then it was just Dave and me.
Mhm.
And then uh I think they filled it in with Audra Furuichi. And Audra does a comic strip called Nemu Nemu. But for the Honolulu Star Advertiser, she does this one called Blue Hawaii, which is kind of a comic strip about like these little stuffed dolls. That it's a really cute strip. If you get a chance, you should check it out because it's a very wistful strip. It kind of reminds me of kind of like Mutts, you know. It's very cute.
Yeah. Mhm.
Anyway, later on, what happened was Dave passed away actually,
Sorry.
and so now it's alternating between me and Audra. So we go back and forth.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the Generation Gap comic strips.
Mhm.
This is the Japanese American newspaper.
Yeah.
I think if I remember, I think at the beginning of the interview, I think he kind of mentioned it, but I'm going to ask you again, what is the premise of this comic strip?
Okay, this is another one where they approached me to do a comic strip. So it's basically about two generations. It's
Mhm.
about the grandparents and the grandkids, and then how they don't see eye to eye.
Mhm.
Um, the grandparents are more like folklore and customs, you know, and traditions.
Mhm.
The kids are more about fads and latest technology. I mean, it's just like nowadays, right? You know,
Mhm. Yeah.
and so it's kind of like a local version of the comic strip Pickles. If you ever seen that one,
Yes. Mhm.
yeah, it's kind of like that. Um, and the reason why I decided to do it this way is because the demographic is mostly the older generation.
Yes.
So for me, I was observing my parents and seeing the funny relationship between them and my nieces and nephews.
Mhm.
And it's stuff like even for me thinking like if I had kids, you know, these kids would be like that. Or stuff I even remember when I was a kid, you know, the trouble I would make.
Mhm.
But I figured this is something that everyone can relate to, you know.
Mhm.
And but I also have to incorporate something Japanese, whether it's like food or like language or stuff like that. So it's kind of semi-educational as well. You know?
Mhm. Okay. And then does that come out? Is it a weekly thing or is it every 2 weeks?
um, the actual comic is, I mean, the actual publication is printed like every first and third Monday of every month.
Mhm.
So there's sometimes where I'm juggling both comic strips like
Mhm.
the same week, and then
Oh.
summer's like every other week. You know, I have to. So it's almost like I'm doing a strip, you know, every week,
Mhm.
whether it be for the Star Advertiser or for the White Herald. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Um, and then let me see. Let me ask you about this other one that I came across. Something about adventures with Zori.
Yeah.
Now,
So
is that a comic strip or is it?
so it's basically like little stories about my cat.
Mhm.
You know, my cat's name is Zodi, and the humans that she allowed to live with her. This one came about was because I never owned a cat before. I never had a cat.
Mhm.
Like I've had a dog. You know, I've had fish and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
so having a cat is like a totally new experience. I mean, it really is. Like if you've never experienced living with a cat, it is so different. So I drew some comic strips, you know, just quick sketches of like the silly things that happen, and
Mhm.
you know, things like going to the vet, you know, climbing up on the screen door, you know, catching lizards, you know, stuff that appear in a food bowl,
Mhm.
and all this stuff is probably not new to cat owners, but it
Yeah.
was definitely new to me, you know. Enough people were kind of hounding me online, you know, because they love the strip so much that they wanted me to put it together in a book.
Oh, okay.
And fortunately, we had enough pre-orders, and I managed to redraw all the comic strips and put it together last year, about the same time, actually. You know,
Ah,
but it came out right before Christmas, so
mhm.
it was good. We're hoping for a second book to come out, but I've been so busy with freelance and everything, I haven't even had a chance to redraw the strips yet. So
Mhm. Okay. And then now that collection of stories, Adventures with Zodi, that's the one. It's called Let the Fur Fly. Is that correct?
that's the subheading of the first book. Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to go back to the Calabash comic strip,
Okay.
Generation Gap. Correct. Now you have those collected, right? Okay.
Yeah. So I have 3 books collected,
Mm-hmm.
and you can get those on my store.
Mm-hmm. And then
Um, I,
also too, if you sell them here at the local conventions as well too.
yeah, local conventions, and then you might sometimes I have them at the comic book shops. It depends. Yeah.
Hmm. And then now um I read an issue of the Ara Rangers.
Hmm.
I also noticed that you also put local celebrities
Oh,
in.
yeah. That's right.
Now, which,
Um,
yes, so can you tell us like which famous local celebrities? And we're talking about, could be singers, could
yeah,
be newscasters.
yeah. Uh, there's a local newscaster, Yunji Denise,
Yes.
and we've been such great friends with each other. Like, I attended a local event, and I think it was like it was a cancer prevention thing. So they're raising funds, and she was kind of like the host. And it's really funny. I was so tired, I didn't recognize that she was in line, and I drew her. I did a caricature of her and her husband. And ever since then, it's like she's been following me. She's been picking up the Gecko books because she recently had kids,
Hmm.
and she did articles of us. She did articles of the interviews of us with the local kind of greeting cards and everything. She's always been so great to us. So I decided to kind of throw her in there, and it was kind of a surprise. So she didn't know I was gonna do that. So, but once in a while, like when I do the comic strip or even other things. Oh, also, I guess in the same strip, I drew one of our friends, Zarly, and he's a photographer who's at all the conventions.
Yes. Hmm.
And everybody who saw it was like they knew immediately it was him. So that was kind of fun. Um, but once in a while, like when I do events or when I get asked to do like certain projects,
Hmm.
um, when I do crowd scenes, I'll draw people in there, and I usually don't tell them. It's like I want it to be a surprise. But also when I post on social media, somebody sees it and they usually like tag the person, the actual person, like the official person. It could be like The Rock or somebody like that.
Yeah.
One I did was for the newspaper for TGIF. They gave me the cover of TGIF, and that TGIF is one of those. It's like a collection of like and talking about all the things going on over the weekend.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, so I think it was for the Comic Con Honolulu.
Yeah.
And so they gave me the specs for the cover. So I do a real crowded comic book scene, Comic Con scene.
Hmm.
And the guest was George Takei. So I actually drew him in there.
Oh.
And it was kind of cool because I got to meet him, but I was so tongue tied when I gave him the actual, the actual
Yes.
uh,
The,
article,
yeah.
the thing that I was just kind of pointing like, that's you, kind of thing. He's like, oh, it looks like me. And
Hmm.
I guess in some comic strips, I do mention other people. Like, I mentioned like Jason Momoa and, some other people. And yeah, it's funny because it's always reblogged and somebody always puts a hashtag or, sends it to them. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I never really hear back from them though,
Yeah.
but if I do hear back, hopefully it's not like a cease and desist or something. It's like, hey, you used my likeness. I didn't give you permission.
But I think it's pretty cool that you
But that's fun.
you put in like the local, like you put in like local celebrities that we see, like the newscasters, like, hey, you know
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah, all right. All right. Let me see. I'm gonna continue on. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. So I know you and some of the local artists, you guys, there was a time where you guys used to meet at Pearl Ridge, right? Some type of like
Right.
artist jam session.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, was that like a monthly thing? And how did that
Um,
come about?
so this is called Comic Jam Hawaii, and there's a Facebook page that has it, and you can visit it. You don't have to be a member or anything. You can visit it and see like some of the art and everything on there.
Hmm.
But Comic Jam Hawaii is led by another local artist, Michael Cannon,
Oh, okay.
and he's pretty much run this from the beginning. Comic Jam was actually founded by a woman from Canada who came down, during the cold season. She decided to flee to Hawaii.
Hmm.
So MP Mangan, I think her last. I probably mangled her last name. I'm sorry, but we just call her MP.
Hmm.
Um, she set up a meeting, and it's really funny because like I got an email, and I thought it was spam because it was an email to me, and it was from me,
Hmm. Yeah.
and it was talking about this event, like, hey, let's meet at Coffee Talk, a certain event, and
Yeah.
it's a cartoon thing. So, but like I said, it was from me too, so I'm just like, oh, this has got to be spam. So I just disregarded it.
Yeah.
Um, Later on, my one of my other friends, Byron, who knew MP, he asked if I was going to go to the event. So I was like, I didn't know it was real. So I called up a couple other cartoonists, including Dave Thorne, my mentor.
Hmm.
I called a couple of the other local professionals here, Dennis Fujitaki. I don't know if you know, aware of his stuff. Dennis worked on Delgota.
I might know him. No. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And he also worked on like ElfQuest, and he's
Oh, okay.
worked on locally. You've probably seen him because he did a lot of the Dead Gecko recipe T-shirts for
Oh.
Crazy Shirts. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think it's one of those when you see his style, you recognize it. Yeah,
Hmm.
he's been in the comic industry for a long time. Also Gary Kato, and Gary Kato is also working on ElfQuest, and currently he's working on Mr. Jigsaw.
Oh. Okay.
But yeah, and I also called designer Alan Lowe, who's also a good friend of mine and also a cartoonist as well. And so we had a small group of like a few of us,
Hmm.
and so we used to meet at like different malls, you
Okay.
know, but Pearl Ridge was the most supportive. So now we have it at Pearl Ridge,
Hmm.
and it's usually every first and third Sunday.
Hmm. Okay.
And we invite everyone who's interested to come out. So, because artists are usually pretty shy. They usually don't want to show their work. They usually don't want to meet people. So this is a good opportunity to like, make contacts, talk to people.
Hmm.
Um, we dragged a few special guests like Stan Sakai, would show up once in a while,
Wow.
things like that. So, but the attendance is, it's really low key.
Hmm.
So we usually have kids come up, and a lot of people don't even realize what's going on. They said, "Oh, what is this about?" I said, "Oh yeah, come draw with us."
Hmm.
We have novices, we have professionals, and everything. So yeah, so it's a pretty neat little thing where we just get together and just kind of like draw with everybody, encourage people to draw.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to ask, like, because of the pandemic and so forth, you know, have, you know, are you guys still meeting now, or are you guys planning to start up meeting again soon?
So when the pandemic hit, yeah, we couldn't do any like public functions or anything.
Oh yeah.
We actually did it. Yeah, we did it online, but
Oh.
we did it through a Facebook Messenger, and we also did like a StreamYard.
Mm-hmm.
So we could have like up to 6 to 7 people, online drawing, talking story at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Nowadays, they actually set up an area, so they maybe like 6 tables, and then the seats are apart, so we can actually they've been actually meeting. But I've been a little bit paranoid because so I haven't really I really haven't appeared like all year.
Oh no, yeah.
But when they first started doing it, I didn't have my shot back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I kind of waited till I got my vaccination shot, and then I also had other health issues, so I didn't want to chance
Mm-hmm.
going.
Yeah.
But they are still meeting,
Oh.
every first and third, Sunday unless specified.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, John, I understand. Yeah, it's like, um, it's like me right now. It's like, I'm fully vaccinated. Because the numbers are kind of fluctuating up and down.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
not even going to a movie theater.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, So, but no, so I understand. Yeah,
Yeah.
but but I'm gonna say, but it's good. At least at least some of them are meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's really what it is. It's like it's the creative energy that you get, for being other creative types.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't get that by being by yourself. You need to kind of interact with other people or get inspired by others. And that was the whole purpose of a comic jam.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. Well, that's pretty cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm slowly wrapping things up. So, um, let's see. There is okay. So, at conventions, you
Okay.
know, what is your most common commission request? Like, is it like superheroes? Is it super villains? Super Sentai,
Oh,
Kaiju?
I I get all kinds. I mean really, but I guess people see what I do and they know what they want kind of thing. So more cartoony things. But
Mhm.
right now, I would say right now all the requests I'm getting right now is Grogu, Baby Yoda,
Oh yeah.
and Usagi Ojimbo, which is awkward since I know Stan. I'm kind of like, hey, I hope you don't mind. I'm cashing in on your IP. And it's funny because I would do a lot of Deadpool and Spider-Man, which is weird because I don't think my anatomy is that great. I have like real cartoon anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, people like it. Well, when people contact me or they commission me,
Mm-hmm.
they want funny,
Mm-hmm.
so they kind of want to see what I want to do with the characters,
Mm-hmm.
and this goes back to like I think several years ago we were doing these little 4x4 squares for Dragon's Lair, the comic book shop,
Mm-hmm.
and I decided to do like comic book characters, but everyone's with shave ice,
Mm-hmm.
or snow cone, and what
Mm-hmm.
we call it shave ice. Yeah, shave ice is snow cone for you in the mainland. And so I just had them silly things with the characters in Hawaii. So like for example, like uh, like Spider-Man would have a shave ice that looked like, I don't know, like his head or something like that.
Yeah.
Or like Batman would have one that was the bat symbol on it or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like fun and a little creative, and I'd draw like a little beach in the background and so forth. And then another year I did the characters playing the ukulele and singing songs like related to them. So it's fun. So a lot of times when people hire me, that's what they want. They want to see what I can do with the character to make them silly and
Mm-hmm.
local like that. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, let's see. John from the Comic Book Page podcast, he
Hmm.
asked. Now, I know you already talked about commissions. Like,
Yeah.
if someone who is interested in getting a commission from you, how can they reach you?
Smoke signals usually. I'm just kidding. They can private message me, either through Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
or you can also send a message through my store.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just send me a message. I mean, yeah, I'll try to get back to you, and as long as I'm not like super busy, I can we can talk about price and so forth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Also, too, John asked, like, if there was, let's say, if there's a new listener, or
Yeah.
someone who's, reading comics
Hmm.
and is kind of interested in what about any of your comics that you've written, where can they like again, where can they pick up, like, your comics, or the comic collection of comic strips collection, where can they pick it up from again?
Best place is my online store. So johnjmurakami.bigcartel.com.
Hmm.
So it also has like sample pages of each of the books and comics. So otherwise on social media, I just post random stuff, and yeah, I'm not really organized. I probably should have a website or something like that. But yeah.
Now, also too, if there's someone that wants to check out your works, which one would you recommend to them to check out first?
I think it depends, like, are you into the humor, or are you into the, you know,
Mm-hmm.
are you more into comic strips or the comic books?
Mm-hmm.
Then, yeah, I mean, definitely for the comic books, I would say Out of Angels is a good one to take a look at. Also Gordon Ryder.
Mm-hmm.
For the comic strips, I would say uh, Generation Gap is good for, like, if you like the relationship kind of things. But for like, if you want to know about Hawaii, Calabash is good.
Okay.
So I try to catch a little of everything. Of course, if you like cats, pick up the Adventures with Sodi. If you're a cat lover, someone who likes cats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, and
But basically, just pick up everything.
yeah, just pick up everything. Really. Yeah. Oh, before I start wrapping things up, I want to
Yeah.
ask you about your cards, the local kind cards. How long have
Oh
you
yeah.
been doing that? And then if you could tell our listeners what are the cards and so forth.
So local kind cards are like we call it local cards for local people, but that's not really true. I mean, a lot of people pick it up because they have relatives on the mainland,
Mhm.
and so they send it to them because just to give them a little bit more local things and all that. So we write it in Pidgin English and so forth. Um, Believe it or not, so we usually handle like all the main, like, I guess, occasions and holidays. So we capture New Year's,
Mhm.
Christmas, Mother's Day, Father's Day.
Mhm.
Here in Hawaii, Boys' Day and Girls' Day is a big tradition here. So we actually do that. We also cover like special occasions, like only in Hawaii, like Yakudoshi is a big thing,
Mhm. Yeah.
in Japan, and Kanreki. But we do birthdays, we do thank you cards and so forth. And
Mhm.
I think if you go to localkindcards.com, I think we have a website up. I'm not too sure. This is not my company. This is
Oh, okay. Okay.
but I've been working with it and from the beginning. And believe it or not, next year makes 25 years we've been actually out on the market. It's a long time.
Yeah. I didn't even realize that they're out that. I didn't realize it was like they've been doing that for 25 years.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it. It's like it's just such a flash.
Yeah. So
But we have fun doing it. So we hope that the people who read it and receive it, we hope you guys have as much fun reading them as we do making them.
mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me start. I'm going to slowly wrap things up.
Yeah.
So correct me now. You've already mentioned, your requests for commissions to do Usagi Yojimbo.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't you do a pinup in Usagi Yojimbo number 20?
I did.
How did
I
that
did.
come about?
Okay. Okay. It's a weird story how this came about. So Michael Cannon and Michael Cannon is a local artist. We did a little drawing session about Usagi Yojimbo. And so basically we were just on screen and we're drawing just various fan art about Usagi Yojimbo. So some fans saw the show and they reached out to me asking if they could have the drawings.
Mm-hmm.
So I sold it to them. And this is me not thinking here. So, I did the drawings and these were like small. They were only on like 4x6 panels.
Mm-hmm.
And I colored it and everything. So I sent it out in a 5x7 postcard. And all I did was put a forever stamp on it and mailed it out. And I had been doing a ton of commissions at this point, and I mailed everything that way. And because it was fun, because I could use all the different kinds of forever stamps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I was on the Sesame Street ones. So, yeah. But about 7 to 8 weeks later, I get contacted by the person that was supposed to go to, and he was in California, and he
Yeah.
says he never received the letter.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I kind of like, did facepalm because there's no tracking
Yeah.
if you send it that way. So then he was like, well, what do we do?
Yeah.
And I felt really bad because I'm thinking like, this is original art. Why would I put no tracking on this thing? What was I thinking?
Uh-huh.
So I felt really bad, but fortunately I scanned in everything, so I had things for reference. The two images I sent him weren't that hard to replicate because
Okay.
one was like Usagi Ojimbo, like in a Charlie Brown kind of style.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was his Tokage lizards and one of my geckos. So that
Mm-hmm.
was easy to draw. And I felt really bad. So for his patience, I actually drew a third image that he didn't know about.
Yeah.
And it was basically um, it was basically an image of Usagi Ojimbo, and he was holding his sword. He was jumping toward the audience, and the back I put a big hokusai wave.
Yeah.
One of those classic waves that you see
Yes.
that the artist Hokusai did. And so he didn't know about it. So once he received it, he posted online. And he was really happy to get the bonus image.
Mm-hmm.
And since he posted it, I usually wait till the recipient posts it online, and then I'll post it.
Mm-hmm.
And so shortly after I posted it, I was contacted by Stan
Oh.
that he wanted to use it in an upcoming issue of Usagi Yojimbo. And I was excited. I was just like, really? You want to use the image? So So he told me it's probably going to be in issue number 17.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really excited about it because issue number 17 was when Stan, I think for the cover, he did kind of an homage to Frank Frazetta, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay.
It's a really nice cover. So I opened it up and I didn't see it. You know, I'm flipping around. It's like, oh, is it in the middle? No, that's not. Or maybe it's in the next issue. So
Mm-hmm.
issue number 18 came out.
Yeah.
And I looked, oh, it's still not in there. So I contacted Stan, and then he followed up with his publisher, and he assured me it was going to be in number 20.
Uh-huh.
So I gave heads up to the comic shops, not realizing that it would sell out so fast because of the introduction of the new character.
Oh.
Yeah, so there was a new character that he introduced, and it was on the cover. Yukichi Yamamoto, I believe, is the new rabbit samurai, and people bought it because they speculated it was going to tie in with the Netflix series because
Yes.
Usagi Yojimbo is going to have a Netflix series. So yeah, so it sold out like instantly, and the price went up ridiculously. It was so fast that he had to do a second printing, and
Uh-huh.
even that flew out. You know, but you know how it is. Anytime there's a new character, or even like if it's issue number 1, all the comic guys just grab it right away.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I saw it in the feature in the back, and I was really honored that it was in there. So that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I got some Usagi commissions after that, you know, because I guess people like my work. So yeah.
That is pretty cool. So okay, so I'm just gonna clarify. So were you able to get like a first printing of number 20?
I did.
Oh, good. Okay.
Fortunately, I had Lucas pull some on the side for me
Oh,
early
okay.
on. I really wish I requested for more, but I think even him too, like they shorted him a lot.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, a lot of the comic book shops they do that. The distribution is kind of wonky. So
Yeah. And then for our listeners, me and John, our LCS is Dragon's Lair. So if we ever
yeah,
mention Lucas's name, Lucas is the owner of the shop. So yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool.
yeah.
But actually, if we didn't do this interview, you could have just told people, yeah, issue number 20 sold out because, because my work is in it.
I don't think it was that. It's fun though. I mean, I'm very honored to be a part of it. You know. So,
So I'm gonna say I know you said that you're honored to be a part of that issue, but I'm gonna were you excited to see it to be in a comic book shop and to really see it in your hand? Were you excited?
oh, of course. Yeah,
Ah,
definitely. You know.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That really is. So yeah, okay. So let's see. The next fun question I'm going to ask is, you know, um, what was your first comic book convention that you attended as a fan?
Oh, as a fan,
Yeah.
that was back. Uh, I would say it would be 1991 at
Mm-hmm.
San Diego Comic Convention. That was my first convention. And 1991, I think, was the first year that it was actually held in the convention center.
Mm-hmm.
So the convention center was brand new.
Mm-hmm.
So I think previously they had it in like hotels, like the El
Yes.
Cortez and the U.S. Grant and so forth around that area. But it got so big that they had to like move it to the convention center.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, when I went, they were only using half of the first floor. Like now, when you go to the con, they had to they actually expanded it like several times. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so it got even bigger and bigger. And now it's like they're using the entire convention center, like the bottom floor, all 5 floors, and everything. It's ridiculous. It's such a huge thing now. It's like a zoo. You know.
I'm gonna ask that first time you went in 1991, like, how did you get tickets?
Oh, back then it was so easy to get tickets.
you
You know.
know, like, was it just you and your friends, you and your family? I mean, who?
Oh, I went with friends. So again, I bring up Dave Thorne, you know, my mentor, because he was going up,
Mm-hmm.
and Dave Thorne is good friends with Scott Shaw, Sergio Aragones, Stan Sakai,
Mm-hmm.
Steve Lealoha,
Yes.
all these artists. I mean, it's amazing the amount of people that Dave knows.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at his autograph book,
Hmm.
and it is amazing. The original drawings he's got, from like people like Charles Schultz, like people like um, um, shoot, I can't even think of his name. But he's got a whole bunch of artists in that book, and it's just amazing.
Hmm.
And they're all originals. They're all original sketches.
Hmm.
Um, um, Mill Caniff, who did Steve Canyon, the comic strip Steve Canyon. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So it's really really cool.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah. I mean, it was a good time, and I didn't go like every year, but I
Mhm.
think sporadically after that, like when we did Pagers, we decided to go up, and we actually had a small booth,
Well, that's pretty cool.
and then we were going like a couple years after that, several years after that.
Hmm.
So
Wow. Okay. Now, have you ever been invited to a convention on the mainland? Well, no, well, you already mentioned that already. You went to San
yeah,
Diego.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I wasn't invited though. It's like
oh,
I'm
okay.
small peanuts. I'm never a guest.
Okay.
But
Well,
I don't.
okay.
I don't expect to be. I don't
Okay.
expect to be.
Have you been invited to as an artist? Have you been invited to any conventions on the mainland?
No. Like I said, they don't know who I am.
Mhm.
I'm small peanuts.
um, let's see. Okay, so now you've mentioned earlier that that you and your wife a couple of years ago when William Shatner and some of the next
Yeah.
generation actors came down. Um, I know you said that you and your wife had dinner with Rick Holberg. Now, like, correct me if I'm wrong. If a creator visits the islands, while on vacation, you
Yeah.
kind of sort of take some of them around. Is that correct?
I try to. I mean, I just try to show them some aloha. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's not even the creators too. Like, like I've invited like voice actors and everything if they, just to show them some aloha.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if they're wary. It's like who is this guy? Why is he doing this? But if they want it, I do it. So I think it started with Phil Ye. Like I hung out with him, took him around the island.
Uh-huh.
uh, Greg Evans, who does the comic strip Luann. I've taken him around, him and his wife
Oh, that's
Betty
pretty.
around. Donna Barr, who does Desert Peach.
Yeah.
Roberta Gregory, who does Bitchy Bitch, and many more people. I just take them around the island,
Hmm.
hang out with them, stuff like that.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, and then we have our regular friends, who visit from the con. Some are from California, some are from Canada. Yeah, we usually just take them around, hang out with them.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Um,
But yeah,
favorite convention moment.
my
Either
favorite convention moment.
yeah.
Wow,
If you
wow.
have,
There's
if you
there,
have a
there's
couple,
so
that's good.
many.
Yeah.
There's so many. I think as a fan, just meeting like your heroes, that's always such a
Hmm.
thrill. Just you're like, wow, this is the guy. And most of the people that you meet are really down to earth and really cool. You know what
Yes.
I mean? You would think that okay, maybe there's one or two who are kind of had a like a chip on their shoulder kind of thing. But maybe I caught them on a bad day, kind of
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
But for the most part, everybody's really great. I'm really happy to meet them, and we can talk a little bit shop and all that.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, dinner with Rick Holberg was a big highlight for me. I would say uh, we had dinner with George Perez actually. That was a thrill, you know.
Wait. Was it okay? Because was that like kind of like a separate thing? Because I remember going.
This is a separate one. No, this
Oh,
is a separate one. So Michael Cannon is a huge fan of George Perez, and
okay.
the very first year he came down,
Oh, the first year. Okay.
he contacted him right away. And
Yes.
it's funny because he showed me what he wrote, and he says like, "Does this seem stalkerish?" And before I could say yes, he said, "I sent it." And I'm like, "Why did you do that? That's so creepy." But George says, "Yeah, let's do it."
Hmm.
And so we went to the top of Waikiki,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it was just Michael Cannon, me, and Gwen. Oh,
Hmm.
Gwen is my girlfriend, by the way, not my wife. But
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
no, that's fine. But and it was just the four of us, and we just had a nice time talking story and just not only about comics but just just things in general. So and he's such a cool guy. He's such a nice guy.
Oh, yes.
He's wonderful.
Oh,
So Yeah. So that I would say is kind of a big highlight for me. But yeah.
Wow, that's
Um,
pretty good.
yeah. Um, a lot of times too, like especially for conventions now, especially for voice actors, I've always admired cartoons
Hmm.
and voice acting. Voice acting has always been like a something that was amazing to me because these are the people who breathe the life into the character. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's like if you get the wrong voice, it's so bad.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
So I've had people like Tara Strong and who does Raven and Bubbles and
Hmm.
I guess her most recent thing is that Miss Minutes,
Oh,
from
that's right.
Loki. Yeah.
Yes.
So I would draw like their characters, some of their
Hmm.
characters in Hawaii on a 4x4, and I would give it to them,
Hmm.
and they're usually pretty happy about it, or the voice cast of Dragon Prince came down,
Oh God. Yeah.
and so I drew little cartoons for each of them,
Hmm.
and they were happy. I did one for Bill Farmer, who did Goofy. He's the current Goofy, in
Hmm.
Disney things, and he was really happy. Even the anime people, I usually will do that too. And or I also did one for Charles Martinet, who does the voice of Mario.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're usually so happy, and to me that's always a good moment where you see they really appreciate your art and they really appreciate someone takes their time to give them a drawing. And I hope that like when they see that they realize that this con is different from other cons they've been to.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, as a creator, I would say the best moments is definitely meeting the fans.
Hmm.
Meeting people who appreciate what you do. They like your work and everything. They support you. They pick up whatever's at the table. Um, oh, here's a great story.
Hmm.
So one year, these two Girl Scouts came up, and they had the chaperones with them,
Hmm.
and they said, "Oh, we really like that children's book you draw, the Gecko's children's book that you draw.
Hmm.
So we made our own."
Hmm.
And I said, "Oh." And so they present me with this little, book that they drew on and stapled together.
Yes.
And it's called Gecko Party, and in parentheses, gone wrong. And I said, okay. And these children books are meant for like young kids.
Hmm.
And so like, so an excerpt from my book would be something like, Gecko surf, geckos dance,
Hmm.
geckos wearing funny pants, and somebody else does the writing, I just do the illustrations. And I've done about like 9 books of that. Anyway, so this is their homage to that. So it was kind of funny because it started off normal, like, you know, geckos, gecko with a cake, geckos start to bake, and things like that. And then it's by like page 4, it starts kind of like, you know, geckos fleeing, geckos running, and then geckos peeing. And I'm like, wait a minute. And there's a picture of the back of the gecko, and you can
Yeah.
see a trail of pee.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So you know that this is kind of going south, okay?
Hmm.
And then in the middle, this cat comes in, like this huge cat, and starts mauling all the geckos. And it's like I was just like shocked. I'm like, what is going on here? So it's like um you know what was it, like geckos fleeing, geckos crying, geckos praying, geckos dying. And there's like all these little, I mean, it's like it's total carnage. And I'm thinking like, these are Girl Scouts. They look like they were like 9 to 12. And I'm like, oh, is this what they teach them in Girl Scouts? But I was just laughing so hard.
Uh-huh.
And I was so flattered. And it's funny because I showed this to my editor, at
Uh-huh.
Beach House Press. And she was shocked. She was just like, oh my gosh. And I just said, I want to draw this. You know what I mean? But yeah. So, to me, things like this is always a big highlight, you know. It was just so fun.
Mhm.
So in thanks, I gave them like whatever they want on my table they could have, because
Yeah.
I just thought this was so great.
um Off the cuff here, because I know, for conventions we have on Oahu, we have Comic-Con Honolulu, we
Mm-hmm.
have Amazing Comic-Con.
Mm-hmm.
um I know the Big Island has one. Now
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, you've been invited to the Maui Comic Con, right? With
Yes.
Alika Seki there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how and you've gone, correct me if I'm wrong, they've had what, 3 or 4 years before COVID hit and stuff?
Um, it was two or three of them. I can't remember offhand, but yeah, yeah.
But have you gone to
Oh, actually, yeah, there was three. There were three. That's right.
okay.
I've been to all of them. Yeah. The first one was actually, I believe, at the mall in
That's right.
Cannery. Yeah. So we're actually outside the stores. So
Yeah.
people are kind of like wondering, like, what the heck is going on, you know?
Hmm.
But that was a real fun one. That one was really like, it was really active and everything. The second one was at the
Maui
yeah,
Comic,
was
Maui Community College, I think.
yeah, that was the second one. Um, that one, I think the guests were Stan Sakai and Mark Teixeira.
Yeah.
And then the last one was also them, and I think they had like Bob Camp, who worked on Ren and Stimpy,
Uh,
um,
who
Keith
created
Tucker, yeah.
the guy who created Goon, Eric Powell.
Oh, Eric Paul was there. Yes, that's right. How did I forget that? Yeah.
No, but
Um,
mhm.
yeah, but yeah, they're all fun.
Mm.
They're all really fun. You know.
Because I've been meaning to go
Yeah.
to one of at least a month because it just sounds fun and
Well,
just
you're wearing the shirt. What's going on? You're wearing the Maui Comic Con shirt. I
yeah.
can see his video. So yeah.
Because I think like I don't have Facebook, but sometimes I'll scroll through his Facebook and
Oh
they'll have
yeah.
the shirts on sale
Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
kind of help support. So it's like,
Oh,
yeah,
that's good of you.
why not? Oh, but yeah, one year I have to make it out there one year.
Yeah, it's pretty low key, but it's like it's fun. I mean, it's a little bit more intimate, you know.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I have to because I know Ed Pisker was supposed to come down last year.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
And
yeah.
then I think both of them. I think Ed Pisker and Jim Rugg were gonna come down. I think.
Oh, that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah,
I think Ed still wants to come down.
yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Um, Hawaii has the Hawaii Con. That's the Big Island has the Hawaii Con.
Hmm.
That one is an interesting one because they bring down a lot of celebrities, but they tie it in with STEM and the schools.
Oh, okay.
So the schools will come in and they'll talk individually to the classes, and
Oh.
so like they'll even have like lightsaber demonstrations,
Hmm.
where the kids are interactive with that, or but also like you can pay to go like swimming with the stars, like swimming with the manta rays or something like
Hmm.
that with a celebrity of some sort.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. And then Kauai has one now. The island of Kauai has one now by Aaron Yamasato started it the other year.
Yes, I think it was like,
Yeah, and then we had Bon Daisuke, who was the guest actually, because he's never been to Kauai before, so it was a big
oh.
thrill.
Hmm.
So it's kind of cool because like each island seems to have one, and
Yes.
if you can't make it to Oahu, then we'll try to bring it to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I think yeah, one year I probably got to check out the Kauai one, but definitely Maui one. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I want to check out Alika's store too as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, okay. All right. So I'm slowly wrapping things up. Okay. Um, this is going to be a tough question for you.
Okay.
Favorite local restaurant?
Oh boy.
Or if you got two or
I,
three.
I'm simple. I'm simple. So of course, I mentioned Highway Inn.
Yes.
I like their Hawaiian combo. I like the fact that, and if you've never been there, it's kind of funny because they serve it on cafeteria trays.
Yeah, and but
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
but
Yeah.
it's fun. Um, L&L we mentioned, and of course I like their chicken katsu. But I also like Zippies. Like I like their zip pack. You
Hmm.
know.
And then,
Um,
mhm. And then for our mainlanders, sorry, John. So for our mainlanders again, Zippy, and I know there's going to be a Zippy. There should be a Zippy's in Las Vegas right now.
Vegas, I think they're in the middle of building that one right now. Yeah.
Okay. So again, it's another it's like what, local fast food chain
Yeah, kind of like
restaurant.
a diner. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the zip pack that John mentioned, it's white rice, furikake on top, um, fried chicken. Oh my God, the fried chickens are incredible.
Yeah, the fried chicken is good.
So a slice of teriyaki beef, spam,
Yeah.
Um,
They have a fish.
yes. Hmm.
Yeah.
Breaded fish, and I think that's, oh no,
If you do the deluxe, they also put their chili on there too.
oh God.
Yeah.
So for if when it's safe to travel again and come to Hawaii, that's Zippy's is one place to check out. Their
Yeah.
chicken, the fried chickens is incredible, and the chilies are very excellent. Yes.
Yeah.
So, all right. Sorry, John. Any other restaurants or favorite dishes?
Um, God, there's so many, but I can't think of any
Hmm.
offhand. But I always like, I'm usually a big fan of like chicken katsu or mochiko chicken.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
No, but yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Any place with good saimin is always good too. Saimin is basically a ramen. It's like a noodle dish.
mhm. Um, yeah, I don't know. For me, I just go to Shiro's for
Oh,
some.
Shiraz is always good too. Yeah.
I need to try out some of the other places, but yeah.
I wonder if our art is still hanging there. We actually used to draw over there. After Comic Jam, we used to always go over there, and then we used to do drawings for them, and they would hang it up on the wall.
I'm just gonna say until you know um, COVID mandates are dropped and stuff. Seriously, one day I'll probably go in there and sit down and have lunch in there. And
Yeah.
if there
Yeah.
is, see if your art is still hanging up.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Again, can you promote your where can listeners follow you?
Okay. On Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr, John J. Murakami. So JonJMurakami. And yeah, and then also I have my online store, which is johnjmurakami.bigcartel.com.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Okay. And then any last words to our listeners?
Um, um, Basically, yeah. I mean, for those of you who are interested in drawing, just draw anything and everything. Some people get comfortable with drawing certain things like people,
Hmm.
but make sure you draw cars and mecha and buildings and backgrounds and people of all ages. Draw animals, because you never know what you need to draw.
Hmm.
I know, like for a lot of us, we get frustrated, but just keep at it. Practice everything. Practice every day. Practice a lot. It's just like playing a sport or musical instrument. You only get better by practicing.
Hmm.
And draw for yourself. It's like, and take criticism in stride. I know it's hard. Because you spend a lot of time on it, and somebody cuts it down. I mean, as long as it's constructive criticism. If people are just lashing out at you, try to ignore that.
Hmm.
But draw for yourself. As long as you like what you're doing, chances are somewhere out there someone else is going to like your work. So just hang in there. And you should definitely have fun doing it. Like I love what I do. I can't think of anything else I'd be doing. But
Hmm.
yeah, I just love drawing, and I'll keep doing it until the day I can't.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you, John. So,
No.
John, thank you very much for your time.
No.
And
Thank you.
John, I'm gonna say, I wish you continued success. You know, just and like I said, just thank you very much for your time. You know, just a little bit history, background history, listeners. That I see John at the conventions. I see John at the comic shop. We keep talking about doing an interview, and we finally did it today.
Yeah. Awesome. And once again, thanks for having me, and I hope everybody had a good time listening. Yeah.
No, but thank you. All right. So, again, like I said, John, thank you very much for your time. You know, and then I just want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys. Aloha.
Aloha.
I had a great time talking story with John. We talked about everything from his self-published works to his comic strips that are in a couple of Hawaii local newspapers, and to our favorite local plate lunch places. Now, if you are interested in buying any of his books, we will have a link to his Big Cartel website in the show notes. Now, before I wrap this up, I want to give a couple people some shout outs. First off, I want to thank John Murakami. John, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for doing this interview. Thank you very much, John. And I also want to thank Drew, the co host for the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. Drew, thank you very much for letting me contribute to your podcast. And thank you very much for doing all the heavy lifting behind the scenes. Everything from cleaning up the sound, editing, releasing the episode. So, Drew, thank you very much for all your hard work. Thank you very much. If you are a new listener to the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast, please check out their weekly episodes that comes out every Saturday. Drew and Kyle do spec picks of new releases that comes out every Tuesday and Wednesdays. And finally, I want to thank you, the listener. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys, aloha.